Chapter 9. The following week, I was back in the Golden Mines. I bought in for $3,000 on the same $50 table where I made my big score playing head up. This dealer dealt slow. I didn't mind, it gave me the time I needed to try out my card counting skills. After a few shoes, I was about even. Before the next shoe, there's a dealer change. The dealer I made the big score with and who dealt super fast comes to the table. I figured it to be a good omen, so I started off betting $100 black chips. The first shoe flew by and I couldn't win a hand. The second shoe I'm losing again, then I get a blackjack and things change. I'm on a winning streak. I'm betting small stacks of $100 black chips and he's paying me with $500 purple chips. All of a sudden players come to the table, play a few hands, then leave. Next thing I know, the shoe's all screwed up and I'm on a losing streak. The dealer can see that I'm pissed. I looked at him and said, "Jesus, rude motherfuckers." The dealer turns his head and looks over at an area separated from the casino floor by a gold railing. At the entrances stands a security guard under a neon sign that reads, "Baccarat Pit." Inside are high-limit tables. The dealer leans in and says, "If you're gonna play head up, there's where you do it." New players sit at the table. That did it for me. I colored up my chips, left a tip, then headed over to where the big boys play. You gotta have big ones just to walk in there, let alone play. I walk into the Baccarat Pit and see a familiar face. The attractive woman who took my rating information Memorial Day weekend, Carla Gallion. She's working behind the $100 minimum to $25 maximum tables. I sat down and put my chips in a pack of $100 bills with a rubber band around it on the table. The dealer spreads the hundreds out on the table. Carla watches him count. "Changing 2,000, the dealer says. Carla gives the okay. The dealer puts the hundreds in the drop box. "How are you today, Richard?" Carla asked. "I was doing fine out there playing head up, but then these jerks start jumping in and out of the shoe. In here, they usually ask before coming in," she said. "Not always, though, and there's nothing we can do." "I found that out the hard way," I said. "Are you staying with us?" she asked. "I'm just down for the day." "Well, good luck," she said. I was surprised she remembered my name. I must have made a good impression Memorial Day weekend. But then again, she was on the computer in the pit where they store all of the players' information when I first sat down. The dealer takes out 10 $100 black chips and 2 $500 purple chips from his rack. "Forget the purple," I said. "Give me all blacks." The dealer looks at Carla. She gives the okay. They switch you up to the higher value chips because they want you to bet them. I finally got the balls to bet $100 blacks, $500 purples ain't happening. Besides that, the higher the value, the fewer chips you have to work with. Having stacks of chips in front of me gives me the confidence I needed when going against their endless supply. The dealer slides 2 stacks of $100 black chips to me. I added them to my chips on the table. The game begins. In the first half of the shoe, the count was even, which meant there were just as many low cards out as high. Then the low cards started coming and the count was at a plus 20, which meant the rest of the shoe was loaded with high cards. I put up 4 $100 chips on 2 spots and won both hands. The rest of the shoe was mine except for the last hand. I played 2 spots, 800 on each. On my first hand, I got a 10 and a 6 for 16. My second hand, a 9 and a 7 for another 16. The dealer had a 10 of hearts showing. The shoe was still in a plus count. I knew he had to have a 10 underneath, which gives him a total of 20. There was only one thing I could do, surrender, which meant giving up half my bets. Some players say surrender is for suckers, but most of those players aren't betting the amount of money I am. "Surrender," I said. The dealer took back half the chips from both my bets. He flipped over his whole card. It's a 10 of spades for 20. I asked to see the next 2 cards coming out of the shoe. They were both 10s. By surrendering my 2 hands, I saved $800. After that move, it was time to leave. I figured I'd better not press my luck since I didn't know what they would do if they knew I was counting. I told the dealer I'm done. Carla comes over while the dealer is coloring up my chips. She looks away from the dealer and says to me, "Nice shoe." "Yeah," I said. "I was lucky." She gave me a mysterious look, then moved in closer. "Richie, you know those benches on the boardwalk, the ones across from the Polynesian casino?" "Sure," I said. "The ones facing the ocean." "I'm going on break in 20, she said. "Could you meet me there?" I nodded my head for yes. I cashed my chips, then went to the men's restroom. I washed up, threw on some cologne, slipped the attendant $10, then went out on the boardwalk to meet Carla. She stood 5'8", slender with black silky hair, deep almond eyes. She's sexy and gorgeous. Carla's standing at the guardrail looking out at the ocean. I came up behind her. She turned around and smiled. I could feel her deep sensual eyes on me. Listen, she said. I'm not supposed to tell you this, but it's my job to keep an eye out for players counting. Counting? I said. Counting what? Richie, please. Okay, I said with my hands up. You got me, but it's not like I'm cheating. I'm using my brain, so what could happen? A lot, she said. For instance, we'll limit how much you can wager and how many spots you can play. When you're pressing and winning, we'll call for a shuffle. Your photograph will be given out to every pit boss. The eyes in the sky will be watching every move you make on the tables. Are you going to tell anyone? I asked. No, I'm not. I'm just warning you. Jesus, Carla, I never knew they could do all that. It doesn't seem very fair. The casino industry doesn't make their fortune by being fair, she said. Why are you telling me this? You seem like a nice guy. Wouldn't want to see you get in trouble. Gotta run now, don't forget what I've told you. I would have loved to talk with her longer. I wanted to hear everything she knew about casinos. I watched her disappear into the crowd on the boardwalk while a few other things crossed my mind. Then I started to wonder what was on her mind. This whole business about why they wouldn't let you count cards didn't make any sense to me. It's not like you're in there throwing a set of crooked dice on the craps table or using some kind of mechanical device on the roulette table or slot machines. What the fuck, you're using your brain, for Christ's sake. They should change the signs that the state made them put up on the entrances to all the casinos. The ones with the hotline number for GA, Gamblers Anonymous. They clearly say, bet with your head, not over it. What they should say is, bet with your head, but remember you can't use your brains. Chapter 10. We got home on Monday the 5th. Tuesday, I was in my office deducting my losses from the weekend in my casino ledger. I'm still up $20,000. After that weekend, I swore I'll never play on a holiday weekend. After straightening out a few business tasks, I started making arrangements for my next casino trip. I called Charlie Myers to tell him I'd be coming down early Wednesday morning. Do you need a room? He asked. I'm only coming down for the day, I said. I'll put you down for one anyway, just in case you change your mind. There's one other thing, I said. I'm bringing a lot of cash. What's the best thing to do? Deposit it in the preferred player's cashier cage, he said. When you're ready to play, tell the floor person you have a cash deposit. You'll be able to sign for your money at the table. That will work, I said. Let me know what time you'll be here so I can have a security guard waiting at the valet VIP parking area. He'll escort you to the preferred player's cage. An hour later, I was at my bank. The bank manager, Joe Ryan, opens the vault door. I entered and opened my safe deposit box. It was filled with rubber band hundreds. I put all the ones with red rubber bands and the same amount with natural color rubber bands on them in my briefcase, $40,000. The rest of that day, I tried to keep my mind on business, but I kept thinking about Charlie having a security guard waiting to escort me to the preferred player's cashier's cage. I never knew there was such a cage. And how much money did he think I was bringing? When I got home that evening, I told Jackie I was going to New York the following morning. I pulled into the Golden Mines VIP parking area. I stepped out of my Benz with my briefcase in hand. I followed the security guard into the hotel through the lobby, then across the casino floor to the preferred player's cage. I deposited $40,000 in cash. I walked into the Baccarat pit, took a seat at an empty $100 table. I called the pit boss over and asked him to make it a $200 minimum to $5,000 maximum. He asked what's my buy-in. I told him $20,000. He made a call and a few minutes later came back and put a $200 minimum to $5,000 maximum sign on the table. I signed the cash withdrawal slip and the dealer started shuffling the cards. This is my biggest buy-in and I'm getting the same game as the high roller did in the Polynesian. I told the dealer to give me half in $100 blacks and the rest in $500 purples. He makes stacks of $100 black and $500 purple chips. He slides them across the felt table to where I'm sitting and says, "Good luck." The game begins and the casino sounds that surrounded me muffled, then died. I could only hear the cards brushing across the green felt table, chips stacking, and the few words spoken from the dealer's lips and mine. Hit it, stick, player breaks, double down, push, split them, blackjack, bust them, and surrender. The first shoe ends and I'm up over $5,000. The second shoe starts and halfway through I gave back what I won in the first shoe. When the shoe ends, I'm left with a few thousand. I signed for the other $20,000 and kept repeating to myself, calm down, relax, it's only a game, it's only a game. The third shoe starts, and I can't win a fucking hand. I stood up and told the dealer to color me up, I'm done. I walked out of the preferred player's cashier's cage with 3 packs of $100 bills with $5,000 Golden Mines wrappers on them. In less than an hour, I lost $25,000, but I wasn't done. I walked down the boardwalk to the Polynesian Casino. I entered the Baccarat pit, took a seat at an empty $100 to $2,500 table. I opened up my briefcase and dumped on the table the 3 packs of hundreds with $5,000 Golden Mines wrappers on them. It gets the attention of the casino crew. The dealer shuffles. I cut the decks. He ducks the first card out after showing it to me, and the game begins. 1, 2, 3 shoes go by, and I'm up over $9,000. I'm halfway through the 4th shoe, and I'm betting the limit $2,500. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, the pit starts filling up with Asian gamblers. They're jumping in and out on my shoe. They're smoking cigarettes one after another. Before the dealer takes his card, they bang the table, shouting, "Monkey, monkey." I waved the pit boss over. When he got to the table, I said, "Can't you stop these rude pricks? They're jumping in and out like kamikaze pilots. It's how they gamble, Mr. V. There's nothing I can do." Fuck this. I gather up my chips and stormed out of the pit. I left their preferred player cashier cage with over $25,000. Now I'm out on the boardwalk, walking down to the Coliseum Hotel and Casino. I've been in this joint before, but not to gamble. It's the middle of the afternoon and the Baccarat pit's busy. There's 6 blackjack tables and 2 Baccarat tables. 4 of the blackjack tables have players on them. 2 are empty. I sat at one of the empty $100 tables and called the pit boss over to negotiate. He put a $200 minimum to $5,000 maximum sign on the table. I opened my briefcase and dumped 5 packs of hundreds with Polynesian $5,000 wrappers on them. The dealer shows me the first card before he ducked it, and the game begins. The first hand, I get 2 kings for 20. The dealer has 8 of clubs showing. I stick. He turns his whole card over. It's a 5 of hearts for 13. He takes his next card, and it's a 2 of diamonds. Now he has 15. His next card is an ace of spades for 16. Kiddingly, I said surrender. He slowly turns his next card over. It's a 5 of hearts. He made a 5 card 21. I'm hoping this ain't a sign of things to come, and it wasn't. I'm winning 2 and 3 hands in a row while losing 1 or 2 in between. The last hand in the shoe, I bet the limit, $5,000. I get an 8 of spades and a 3 of diamonds for 11. The dealer has a 7 of hearts showing. I put up another 10 $500 purple chips and said double down. The dealer takes the next card out of the shoe and lays it next to my 11. It's a 9 of clubs, now I got 20. He turns over his whole card, it's a 7 of hearts for 14. He turns over the next card out of the shoe. It's another 7 of hearts for 21. I couldn't believe it, 3 fucking 7s. I took inventory while the dealer shuffles a new shoe. I'm a few grand short from the $40,000 I came down with. I didn't want to leave the table, but I had to take a leak. I asked the pit boss if he'll keep an eye on my chips while I go to the men's room. He said you won't have to go far. He points to the back of the pit where they have a private bathroom. I went to the bathroom, did my thing, and when I came back, there's this nerdy-looking dude sitting in the anchor seat. "Yo, I'm playing head up here," I said. He points to another empty table on the other side of the pit and says, "If you want to play head up, play over there." I looked over at the pit boss for some help. He rolls his eyes. I told the nerd to go fuck himself. I colored up my chips. I was gonna leave, but I wanted to play, so I went over to the empty table where there's an Asian dealer, Lee, and a red-headed floor person, Sue. I took a seat, and the Sue the floor person put a $200 minimum to $5,000 maximum sign on the table. While Lee's shuffling, he asked how I was doing. "I'm having a fucked up day," I said as I pointed to the nerd who's now arguing with the pit boss. "I'm winning over there then," that Putz jumps in. "Before that, I'm in the Polynesian, winning. All of a sudden, a bunch of your people start jumping in and out of the shoe. They were monkeying me to death." Lee smiles and says, "Monkey bring luck, face card you win, dealer break." "Luck," I said. It brought me a headache. Lee finishes shuffling. I cut the decks. The game begins. In no time, I'm pressing to the limit. I'm winning big with blackjacks and double down hands. When I didn't get a good hand, Lee busts. His chip rack is running out of $500 purple chips. Out of the corner of my eye, I see Sue, the floor person, motioning to the pit boss in the back of the pit. She's covering her lips, but I can read them. Get over here, she said. You're not going to believe what I'm seeing. Two security guards come into the pit. One is pushing a cart that's full of $100 and $500 chips. Lees refills his chip rack. The game goes on and I continue winning. The shoe ends. I push my stacks of chips across the table to Lee. Color me up, I said. The pit boss and two other gentlemen corral me. The pit boss introduces himself and the others. I'm Tom Davis, he said. The gentleman here to my right is night manager Howard Cooper. The gentleman to my left is casino host Skip DeRica. I shook hands with all three. The manager and pit boss go back to work. Skip gives me his card and starts pitching. Let me know if you want dinner, he said, or if you want to stay over this evening. Our suites are the most prestigious in Atlantic City. Before leaving, he said to give him a call the next time I'm coming in. He left and Lee finished coloring up my chips. I pointed to my chips and asked Lee how much I got there. He said 80,000 in purples, 400 in black, and $75 in green. I'm staring at Lee's newly filled rack, then at my stack of chips thinking what kind of game would they give me using that for my buy-in. I waved the pit boss over. When he gets there, I point to my stack of chips and said, what kind of game will that get me? He walked away, then came back and changes the sign on the table to $300 minimum to $10,000 maximum. The casino crew watched with great anticipation. I looked at Lee and said, shuffle them. I sat back down and the cocktail waitress comes back with another Perrier water I ordered. I put one $25 green chip on her tray. I looked around the pit for a clock, forgetting casinos have no clocks. So I looked at my watch. It was 8:15. Shit, Jackie was expecting me home by now. I asked if I could make a phone call. The floor person brings a phone from the back of the pit. I flipped around a small stack of purple chips with one hand as I held the phone to my ear waiting for Jackie to answer. Hi, babe, I said. I'm running late, just finished dinner. I have some loose ends to tie up. I should be leaving New York in the next hour. Make sure everything is locked up. I love you. I love you too, she said. Drive carefully. Lee puts the cut card in front of me. I pick it up and cut my destiny. I put 4 purples, $2,000 in the circle in front of me. I looked up at Lee, smiled and said, let them roll. My chips start depleting fast. My hands are shaking, but I keep firing them in and losing. I never seen a dealer get so many blackjacks, 20 and 21 hands. I lost my last bet with my remaining $500 purple chip. I left the baccarat pit with my tail between my legs. I walked down the boardwalk to the Golden Mines and picked up my Benz. It was a long ride home. I was pissed at myself for staying and pissed at those assholes, the manager, pit boss, and casino host. They deliberately came over to feed me all the bullshit about what they could do for me. I gotta always remember that the employees in the casino are the enemy. With their friendly smiles, it's their job to keep you there for as long as they can, offering you the apple, hoping you'll take a bite. What was I thinking? Fuck. Everything I won in the last month, $20,000 of my money plus the $40,000 I was up before I set back down. Fucking 80 G's gone. What the fuck? Those bastards brought more chips in on purpose. They were chumming for a glutton, and I bought in, hook, line, and sinker. They knew the longer they kept me at the table, as high as I was from that big win, I'd buy in again. Those bastards done their jobs well. They kept me there with my casino high at its peak, knowing I wanted to get higher. They had absolutely no sympathy for a dumb fuck who didn't know when to quit. I was so fucking high that I wasn't thinking straight. I know this is gonna sound crazy, but by the time I got home, I chalked it up as a bad experience and one that I wouldn't forget. God damn it, if I would have caught a shoe like the one before I set back down with a $10,000 game, I would have won $250,000. I went straight to my bank the following morning and cleaned out most of my $100 packs with regular rubber bands on them. 45 minutes later, I was entering Atlantic City. Chapter 17. I called Frankie and Mike from my office on Thursday, the day of the fight. I told them to meet me at my Kensington Avenue outlet store by 5:30 p.m. It's only 20 minutes from Northeast Airport. They have no idea that we're going in a chopper. They get to my store and they see a Coliseum limo parked out front. We all get in the back of the limo. It takes off and is heading in the wrong direction. Frankie hollers out, "Yo, Goy, does this guy know where he's going?" He knows exactly where he's going. The limo enters the airport. They were both surprised. "Don't tell me," Mike cried out. "We're going to Vegas." "Nope, we're taking a chopper." Frankie says, "Goy, you're the fucking greatest." Mike nodded his head in agreement. 30 to 40 minutes later, we're in the sky. It's a beautiful night, lit brightly by the moon and stars. We flew over different towns in South Jersey. From a distance, you could see a faint glow of light. As we got closer, the glow got brighter and brighter. Once over Atlantic City, the pilot flew towards the lights that illuminate the sky and ocean. Hotel casinos stretch from one end of the boardwalk to the other. The pilot swings the chopper's tail around and makes a perfect landing on the Coliseum heliport. I reached over and slipped the pilot a C note, $100. The same limo driver who picked us up was waiting at the heliport. The whole trip took about the same time as the limo would have, but the excitement and power it gave me was well worth it. I went to the front desk, checked in, and picked up the tickets for the fight. We went up to the suite to freshen up. Afterwards, Frankie and Mike went down to the pre-fight party in the bamboo room. I went to the casino. I walked into the baccarat pit. On my way to a table, I ran into Lou Gamtucci. "How have you been, kid? You still hitting them good?" "I'm trying, Lou, but they don't make it easy." "Tell me about it. This fucking joint is getting like the rest of them. They better start straightening up their act around here. If they don't, they won't be seeing me or the rest of my family in here." "Hey, kid, are you here to see the fight?" "Nah, it should be a great one, but I figure while everybody's at the fight, there would be a good shot that the baccarat pit will be empty, and I like to play head up. So I plan on doing a little fighting myself right here." "Kid, I like the way you think. If you're going, Lou, here, take my seat. It's ringside." I reached in my pocket for the ticket. Lou's about to light one of his hoagie-sized cigars when a young mob-looking dude with dark glasses on and wearing a black leather blazer comes over. He's got the perfect look if there ever was a Mafia's R Us magazine. "This is my boy," Lou said. "Joey, say hello to my friend Richie Venture." "How you doing, Richie?" he said as we shook hands. Then he moved in closer to Lou and in a low voice said, "Dad, we gotta talk." "Richie, wait here," Lou said. "I'll be right back." They walked over to the other side of the baccarat pit. I watched them speaking with their hands moving. Once the hands stopped moving, the conversation was over. Joey left and Lou walked back over. "Kid, you want to meet the champ before the fight?" "The champ, you know him?" "Know him, I own him. Come on, I'll take you down to where he's warming up." He put his paw-like hand on my shoulder and we walked out of the pit. Two of Lou's buddies and a security guard joined us. We get into the service elevator and the security guard pushed the basement floor button. The elevator door opens and we made our way past the press waiting outside the door where the champ is. The security guard opens the door. I followed Lou and his boys into the room. There's a lot of people inside. Lou's son Joey is in the back of the room with the champ who is shadowboxing. Lou turns around and motions me to follow him. We were halfway to the champ when I hear my name called out in a raspy voice. "Richie the Tailor." I looked in the direction from where my name was called, and who do I see sitting there with his buddies, Gino and Tony, on each side of him is Big Joe. The old gent who I rolled the dice for in the Golden Mines. I had to think fast. I didn't want to disrespect anyone, so I weighed my options, the champ or Big Joe. I walked over and put out my hand. After shaking his, Big Joe gives me the traditional mob hug. Gino and Tony did the same. Lou and Joey came over. Lou says, "Pop, is this the guy from your crap story you're always talking about?" "That's my boy," Big Joe said with his hand on my shoulder. Joey moves in and says, "My grandfather hasn't stopped telling that story. We were starting to think he dreamed it up." "Yo, champ," Big Joe hollers out. "Get over here and say hello to my friend, Richie the Tailor." While I'm getting more attention than the champ, I'm doing the math. Big Joe is Lou's father. That makes him Joey's grandfather. And that puts me in bed with one big happy New York family. Mike and Frankie met up with two hookers at the pre-fight party. They made plans to meet them at the lounge after the fight. They entered the arena and take their seats that are 3 rows from ringside. They're surrounded by actors, actresses, athletes, and a real estate mogul from New York, James Laurent. He just opened up his own hotel casino on the boardwalk. Sitting right next to them is the owner of a Philadelphia Eagles, Donald Frost. They were more excited about him than they were of all the other superstars. This guy Frost was a legend in Philly, the gentleman's gentleman, a real sport. I don't know how true this is, but there was a story going around that he tipped a meter maid after getting a parking ticket. The English fighter McCabe theme song "Another One Bites the Dust" is playing as he and his entourage enter the arena. Most of the crowd is booing and shouting out obscenities as they work their way to the ring. "Go back to England, you limey prick. We bailed your country out of the big one. The Beatles are a bunch of fags. The Queen's a slut." Oscar Sanchez, the American welterweight champion, enters the arena with his entourage. His theme song, Proud Mary, sang by Tina Turner, is blasting throughout the arena. Fans are chanting Oscar's name and waving tiny American flags as he works his way to the ring. Frankie and Mike keep looking out for me. They can't believe I'm missing something this spectacular. They're standing by their seats and watching the champ with his entourage until they were just about on top of them. Frankie grabs Mike's arm and says, "Yo, Mike, are you seeing what I'm seeing?" "Yeah, I don't fucking believe it," Mike said. "What the fuck is the goy doing in the champ's entourage?" I looked over and gave them the finger. Then I took a seat between Lou and Joey right behind the champ's corner. The bell rang and the champ's beating McCabe from one end of the ring to the other. In between rounds, I noticed Lou looking over at this big black guy with the craziest hairdo. He was smiling back at Lou and nodding his head up and down. Less than a minute into the second round, it was all over. Lou wobbles his way up to the ring. I'm standing in front of my seat in shock. Joey gets up out of his seat. He excuses himself, then he says, "He was a good champ." I walk behind the other disappointed fans towards the exit. When I got out of the arena, I looked around and not one of the people I was with was to be found. I guess you could say the crew abandoned ship. I heard my name called out and it could only have come from my crew. "Yo, Goy, over here," Frankie hollered. I walked over and they bombarded me with questions. "What the hell," Frankie said. "What were you doing in his entourage?" "Man, it was insane," I said. "I'm walking down the aisle and all of a sudden I'm being pushed into a crowd behind the champ. Then this guy I met in the casino tells me to sit with him and his son right behind the champ's corner." "Do you believe that shit?" Mike said. "That fight was fixed. He didn't even hit him. That dumb fuck's probably owned by the mob." "I don't know about that," I said. "I just read a story in the newspaper," Frankie said, "about how they control all the casino employees' unions down here. You can bet there were plenty of them here at the fight tonight." Mike leans in and says, "Yo, Goy, is it all right if we bring a couple hookers up to the suite?" "A couple like in two. What the fuck, I'm an orphan?" "I'm sure they'll have a friend or two," Frankie said. "Fuck you guys. I'm going to the Baccarat pit to do some real fucking." They went off to pick up their whores and I was off to make a score. Just like I thought, the Baccarat pit was packed with all the heavy hitters who came down to see the fight. The pit boss told me if I wanted, they would open up a table on the outside floor. I told him I'd think about it, but not right now. Now what am I going to do to kill some time? I know what I can do. I'll make a phony to the Bulber boys in my suite. I went to the host desk in the back of the pit and made the call. Frankie answers the phone. In a deep voice I said, "Mr. Venture." "He isn't here at the moment," Frankie said. "Who am I talking to?" I asked. "I'm his friend, Frankie." "Mr. Frankie, this is Mr. Thompson, head of hotel security. There has been a complaint made to my office that prostitutes were seen going into the suite." "No, sir, I'm here with my wife." "Well, if that's the case, Mr. Frankie, would you mind putting her on the telephone?" He put me on hold. He goes into Mike's room to tell him what was going on. Meanwhile, I'm standing at the host desk in the Baccarat pit for a good 5 minutes waiting for him to get back on. My name keeps coming up over and over on the casino intercom. I know it's them paging me. Finally, the hooker gets on the phone and Frankie's coaching her. "Hello, this is Frankie's wife. How can I help you?" "Ma'am, I hate to bother you like this, but I just have a few questions I'd like to ask." "No problem, babe, shoot," she said as she chews her gum like a cow. "Your husband Frankie is approximately 5'10", weighs about 170 pounds, has brown hair. Am I correct about that?" "That's my man," she said. "That's nice. Now, can you tell me how long you've been married?" Every question I'm asking, she's repeating loud enough for Frankie to hear. "We've been together over 10 years. Married 8 years, 8 wonderful years." "That's beautiful," I said. "I have just one more question, ma'am. What year was the red pickup truck that your husband and his partner bought for that redneck Orville?" After she repeated that, Frankie grabs the phone. "You son of a bitch," he yells. "You almost gave me a fucking heart attack. Mike said it was you fucking with us. Do me a favor, tell that fuck to stop paging me already. Yo, Goy, I've got to tell you the funniest thing. Remember when I put you on hold so I could run into Mike's room to tell him what was going on? You gotta picture this. He's lying on the bed, balls ass naked, with his hands behind his head, looking up at the ceiling, making crazy looking fucking faces, while this bitch is giving him a blowjob. Now, if that wasn't funny enough, she sees me and jumps out of the bed. I'm standing there, Mike's lying there, and we're both looking down at his cock while he's trying to figure out how and when she slipped a rubber on it. You're kidding me, he didn't know that. That dumb fuck had no clue she rubbered him up, Frankie said, laughing out loud. Hold on a minute, Goy, what the fuck did you just say? You're fucking kidding me. Goy, this bitch said I had one on too. How the hell do they do that? Holy shit. She's got a rubber in her mouth now. I've got to run, a table just opened up, but do me a favor. Find out how they slipped rubbers on you dopes so you two can blow me on the way home. I took a seat at the table. The pit boss comes over and the negotiating begins. After getting the best deal I could, I signed a cash withdrawal slip for everything I had in the cage, $100,000. I told the dealer to give me half in $1,000 oranges and the other half in $5,000 grays. The pit boss called the cashier's cage to bring in the reserves. The dealer shuffles. Suspense fills the air. A few players walked into the pit and sit at my table. The pit boss put the $300 minimum to $10,000 maximum sign on the table. Once they see that, they scattered as if gunshots went off. I cut the decks. The dealer shows me the first card out, then he buries it. The war begins. The first assault wave is over. I counted up my casualties, 52,000 missing in action. The second shoe, they have me on Queer Street. I've been here before. My anecdote for this is to forget about the value of the chips and put myself in the it's only a game state of mind. 2 shoes later, I'm just about even. During the 5th shoe, I decided to make an all-out assault. The cut card came out and I was fatally wounded, $70,000 gone. This time, the only state of mind I was in was being a dumb fuck for not quitting when I was close to being even. Then from out of nowhere, a player sits down next to me. He leans in and put his hand on my shoulder and speaks in a comforting tone. Richie the Tailor, I've already seen one champ get beat tonight. I don't need to see another one. How about you take a break, have a drink with me, and if it's all right with you, I'll stay and watch you give these motherfuckers a bloody nose. I paused for a moment, then I said, fuck it, let's have that drink. A cocktail waitress stood between us with 4 shots of Sambuca in her tray. He tipped her a C note. We both stood up and raised our glasses for a toast. Here's to you, Richie the Tailor, salute. And here's to you and your family, Joey Stakes. We threw down our drinks. I sat and Joey stood behind me with his hands on my shoulders. The game begins and Joey's cheering me on. I split, doubled, surrendered, and caught a few blackjacks when pressing my bets. I lost 3 hands in a row and called it quits. I put the 100,000 I started with in gray chips in a rack. Then I counted up my winnings. 4 $1,000 orange, 1 $500 purple, 4 $100 blacks, 3 $25 greens. My winnings total $4,975. I left the $100 blacks and the $25 greens, $475 for the dealer's tip. I told Joey we'll split the $4,500 and he said forget about it. After I made my deposit in the preferred player's cashier's cage, I met up with Joey in the casino's lounge. When I got there, he was sitting at a table with 2 of his friends. I went through the same introduction that I did with his grandfather, Big Joe. The cocktail waitress brings a bottle of Patron on a tray with lime slices and a salt shaker on it. She pours shots. Joey raises his glass and says, here's to Richie the Tailor, the comeback kid. After the toast, Joey asked me what part of Philly I'm from. I grew up in Northeast Philly. Now I live outside the city in Bucks County. My businesses are throughout Philly. My factory is in South Philly. Joey speaks to his crew in Italian and they laugh. I apologize, Joey said. We've had a few problems with some people from South Philly. They have this thing about New Yorkers. So tell me, what's Northeast Philly like? The only thing I can say about that is in South Philly they rob you with a gun. In Northeast Philly they use a phone. Joey speaks to his crew in Italian and they laugh again. We finished off the bottle of Patron. I was about to leave when Joey leans in and says, I got a problem. Maybe you can help me out. Sure, what do you need? I got some cash up in my room here from my steak shops. It's money, you know, I'm not declaring. They're busting my balls and everyone else's who's depositing small bills in the cashier's cage, especially now that the feds are talking about bringing the Secrecy Act laws into these joints. When did you hear that? There's been talk going around that it will probably go down by the end of the year. Fuck that, Joey. That would mean every transaction over $10,000 in cash will be reported to the IRS. That's exactly right, Richie, so before that happens, you better take your money and run. There are only 2 things that could end my casino career. The first would be me losing all my money, but that will never happen. The second would be the government knowing about the undeclared cash that I'm gambling with in the casinos. Now he's telling me what Carla once mentioned being a real possibility. How can I help you, Joey? How about we go to the Golden Mines, you deposit the money in your name. Then go to the Baccarat pit, sign for the money, play a little, but don't go nuts. Play on $100 table and try not to lose no more than $1,000. I'll call you in the Baccarat pit. When you get off the phone, tell them you gotta run, cash in the chips. I'll pick you up in front of the hotel. What if I win? That would be good. My man, Richie the Conqueror. Okay, Joey, let's do it. We walked out of the Coliseum. His friends pull up in a black Lincoln Town car. We get in. Joey's sitting shotgun. I'm sitting in the back next to one of his friends whose feet are on top of a big gym bag. I'm looking down at the bag thinking, how the hell am I going to walk into the casino with the bag this size full of cash? Joey, if you don't mind me asking, how many steak shops do you have? I got 2 in the Bronx and just opened one up in Queens. It's nice having an all-cash business. Hey, you think they'll give me a hard time walking into the casino with this gym bag? Joey looked back at me, then down at the bag and said, Nah, as long as you don't take out my gym gear, I'm sure it must stink by now. All 3 of them started laughing. Gym gear, that's what's in there, fuck. I thought it was loaded with cash. Shit, I'm thinking that it's going to take the cashier all night just to count it. The guy next to me unzipped the bag. He takes out 2 paper bags packed with small bills, $20,000. We pulled into the casino self-parking garage. Joey and I get out of the car. He takes off his black leather blazer. He tells me to wear it. He had his tailor put extra pockets on the inside. I put on the blazer and started putting the packs of bills in the pockets. Joey, you gonna trust me with this? Why wouldn't I trust you with my money? Fuck the money, it's the leather I'm talking about. You're right, Richie the tailor, make sure you give me back my leather. Wait right here, if I'm not back in an hour, call the pit. I walked straight across the casino floor to the preferred cashier's cage. 40 minutes later, I got into the back of the town car. I gave Joey his $20,000 in brand new hundreds and his leather. They didn't question you about the small bills? Not a word, Joey. With the money you play with, Richie, you could walk in there with a couple million and they wouldn't say a thing. My plan is to walk out of here with couple million, not to bring it in. With your balls, you just might do that one day, he said while fanning one of the packs of new hundreds with a $5,000 Golden Mines wrapper on it. Richie, why don't you come with us tonight? We're headed over to a friend of ours, Titty Bar. I'll get you a couple broads. I guarantee you'll have a good time. I'd like to hang out with you guys, but I have friends back in my suite waiting for me. Maybe next time. Joey got out of the Lincoln Town car. He gave me the hug and thanked me again. Then he said, Don't say anything about tonight to anyone in my family. Just keep it between us. As I stood there watching the town car pull away, Joey opened his window and yells, Richie the tailor, the comeback kid. When I got up to the suite, Frankie and Mike were straightening up with the hookers. Goy, you gotta see this, Frankie said. Liz, show him the trick with the rubber. She put a banana in her mouth halfway down her throat and pulls it out with a rubber on it. I said, wow, that's amazing. Do you do parties? Mike says, tell Richie how many rubbers you go through in a week. We use a hell of a lot more these days because of the gays and that crazy disease of theirs. Mike says, just give him a number. Well, it all depends, babe. If I work a 5-day week now, let me think. Okay, wait a minute. I got it. No, wait a minute. That's right. 10 dozen. Then Christy, the other rocket scientist, chimes in with her political rebuttal. If it wasn't for those fucking fags and their day's disease, we would use half that amount. What the fuck are you talking about? Mike hollered. It's AIDS, you dumb bitch. Now both of you go take Richie in the bedroom and don't let him out until he can't walk. Not tonight, we have to go. It's after 3 a.m. Goy, you gotta let Christy blow ya, Frankie said. She could suck the air out of a tire. That's wonderful, but I've seen enough tricks for one night. Liz puts her arms around me and says, oh, come on. We have something really special for you. I'll take a rain check now. Let's go. The chopper's waiting. Next time you're in Atlantic City, give us a call, Christy said on the way out the door. We'll show you a good time. I didn't make it home until 6:30 that morning. Jackie and Raymond were just waking up. She didn't say a word to me until after Raymond left for school. Is this how it's going to be? You're going to come home all the time at different hours, and I'm supposed to just sit here not knowing where you are or what you're doing. What are you talking about? I took Frankie and Mike to the casino to see the fight. You knew that. Everything has to be casinos with you. It's all you ever want to do anymore. Why don't you just go live in Atlantic City? I'm too tired to argue with you, Jackie. I'm going to bed for a while. We'll talk about it later. Later, she yells. One day there may be no later, and you can forget about going to Las Vegas for New Year's. I'm not going. She grabbed her gym bag, then slammed the front door. After I called my office, I lay down in bed and didn't wake up until after 2 that afternoon. Before I left for work, I apologized to Jackie, telling her it wouldn't happen again. She said, "It better not, but we're still not going to Las Vegas for New Year's." Chapter 19. The Golden Mines Mercedes limo picked me up in front of my factory at 10 o'clock that morning. I must have questioned myself 100 times during the ride there as to whether or not I was doing the right thing. Maybe I should retire my high roller career now, take my $500,000 in the Golden Mines, the $130,000 in the Polynesian, and put it with the rest of my cash that I got safely hidden away in my bank safety deposit box. Or do I leave the Golden Mines with millions? This has to be the right time. All the stars are aligned. Besides that, it looks like it won't be long before the Treasury Department gets their hands on the casino's tills. And when that happens, I'll be done. I sat back in the limo's plush interior, staring out the window in the deepest thoughts. There were more than a few times when the uncertainty overwhelmed me. It felt as though my flesh was going to separate from my skeleton. That's when I reverted to my Christian upbringing. Of course, the non-believer that I am is hoping to see some kind of sign from above. I walked into the Baccarat pit. The stage was set. Charlie Myers, Steve Levy, and the casino manager were standing in the center of the pit. I nodded my head and they nodded back as I passed them on the way to my reserve table with a $500 minimum to $20,000 maximum sign on it. The dealer's chip rack is filled with $5,000 grays and $1,000 oranges. Sitting on display next to his rack is my racks, $100,000 in oranges and $400,000 in grays. I sat down as the dealer moved my racks in front of me. Charlie, Steve, and the casino manager didn't move from the center of the Baccarat pit. I signed, the dealer shuffled, I cut. He shows me the buried card and we're off. I started with a $1,000 bet. I lost the first 3 hands and then won 2 in a row. The next hand I pushed with a 20. Then I bet the limit $20,000. He dealt me a 6 and a 9 for 15 against his 10. There was nothing to think about. "Surrender," I said. "Mr. V, you're joking, right?" the dealer said. "Joking? Do I look like I'm joking? Don't you know?" "Know what?" "As of today, there is no more surrender." "Now you're joking," I said, as the pit boss brought the front page of the Atlantic City Times to the table for me to read. Governor Kane says, "No more surrender." Even though the governor of New Jersey has complied with the representatives of the Atlantic City casino industry, he did not echo the commission's predictions that the surrender option would have a severe financial impact on the casinos, especially during the rest of the year. In fact, Kane said he had made his decision, despite some misgivings, and he indicated that acting on his own he might have reached a different conclusion. He did not want to infringe upon the commission's authority. To second-guess the commission now, on a matter of seemingly critical importance to the health of our infant casino industry, would be unwise and short-handed. "Is this fucking guy nuts?" I said out loud. "Second-guess the commission? The casinos have been raking in millions over the past 6 years with surrender, and now they're worried about the health of their infant industry. Give me a break. What about the health of the infant casino gambler like myself?" As you could guess, no one from their side of the fence said a word. I turned around looking for Charlie Myers to ask him why he never told me about this, but he was nowhere to be found. I was contemplating on whether to pick up my chips and run, but where was I going? So I picked up a few grays and held them in my hand for a short time. Then I said, "Fuck surrender," and I fired away. The battle lasted a relentless 3 hours. It was all one-sided. Then it came down to my last wager. I stood up and looked around the Baccarat pit, only to see just a few players on the tables. Charlie, Steve, and the casino manager had already left the arena. I turned back around and looked down at the dealer's cylinders of gray and orange chips. No less than $3 million was staring me right in the face. I had 2 aces and the pitiful dealer had a 6 of spades showing. The casino crew waited in great anticipation. Could the comeback kid pull one last trick out of his hat? Unfortunately for me, my hat was empty. "Hit it," I said. "Player not splitting aces," he said, and took the next card out of the shoe and laid it next to my aces. A queen of clubs, and now I had 12. I took one more card, and it's also a queen. "Player breaks," he said softly, and then with a sigh, he picks up my last $1,000 orange chip. The dealer, pit boss, and floor person looked at me with great despair. I walked out of the baccarat pit across the casino floor to the credit department. After I filled out all the information and signed the papers, I was out the door and on the boardwalk. I walked and walked. My mind was lost in a place that was neither heaven nor hell. I sat down at a table in the baccarat pit in the Polynesian and started negotiating. I signed for my $130,000 that I left in the cage for a rainy day. And I was soaked. Not only was I $500,000 lighter and without the option to surrender, now they laid more bullshit on me. Mr. V, the pit boss said, I'm sorry, but the best we can do today is a $300,000 to $10,000 game. Why is that? I said, it was just last week when I got a $13,000 game. Yes, Mr. V, he said with a smug look on his face. You also made a $200,000 buy-in, not a $130,000 one. Oh, I see. In other words, what you're telling me is that my $130,000 doesn't warrant a $13,000 game. Let me ask you a question. How much money do you make a year? You know, after taxes, what, 50, maybe 60 G's? Would you have the balls to bring it to the table? I stood up and stared into his eyes. I had a look on my face like as if he blinks the wrong way. I'll rip his fucking heart out. He took a few steps back, then walked over to the desk and made a call. A few minutes later, the casino manager walked into the baccarat pit and 2 security guards stood at the entrance. Richard, is everything all right? No, things aren't all right. I'm making a $130,000 buy-in, and this knucklehead is only giving me a $10,000 game. I think by now I deserve at least a $13,000 game. How about if we compromise and we'll make it a $12,000 game? How's that sound? I guess I don't have a choice now, do I? He kind of smiled, then he walked away. 3 hours later, I finished signing up for 45 days interest-free casino credit at the Polynesian and the Coliseum. I left Atlantic City and headed for the sanctuary of my home. I'm sitting in the back of the Golden Mines limo, seeing a much gloomier view of La La Land. Before I cross the bridge into Philly, I have my next assault planned. I'll take the $200,000 in cash that I have hidden away in my safe deposit box and add it to the $100,000 credit line that the Golden Mines, Polynesian, and Coliseum had approved me for. I'll get a big enough game to win back my losses before the feds bring in the Security Act law.